Hello and welcome. So here we are on the Saturday before Christmas, December 19th. And I was just out running some errands and going to the post office. And um, one of the things that was occurring to me as I was out in the world, um, kind of listening to people's thoughts more or less, and it was about change and normalcy and how weird this holiday season is. And um, particularly, I heard a couple talking. I didn't hear most of their conversation, but I did hear the woman saying they were coming out of the UPS store, and she was saying something about um, something being considerate about the postal carrier, about weight, because they carry a lot of stuff this time of year. And it just kind of struck me. I was like, I wonder if if it wasn't for 2020 being the way 2020 is, if she would have thought that way, to be considerate about the postal carrier. Not to say that if you're not considerate about the postal carrier, you don't care about people. But I was just noticing how much more thoughtful some people are this year. I mean, granted, there's some people that are never going to think about anybody but themselves. But just hearing snippets of conversations and kind of tuning into the vibes of people, there was just so much more care. Kind of less shopping and more care energy, which was really gratifying. It was just like, oh, okay, this is, I'm very grateful for this change in the atmosphere. Because a lot of times, the Saturday before Christmas, the energy in the air is, you know, um, gotta, and get out of my way, and harried, like stuck to a list, right? Like the list is in charge, and you must do everything on the list. And the list tends to be comprised of mandates and expectations and requirements from other people and from other times, right? I can't remember who I was talking to recently, but they were talking about how they have to do this and they have to do that um, for the holidays. And I was like, well, how come you're over 70? Why do you have to do these things? And she was like, well, this is the way my mother did them. I'm thinking, okay, your mom's been dead for what, 30 years? And um, she has a small amount of dementia. So and even if she didn't, I mean, it's fine that people want to do things the way they want to do things. There's nothing wrong with that. And what if something else is possible? What if you don't have to do things the way your mom did them? What if you don't have to do things the way you did them when you were in your childhood? Now, I know for myself, there have been times when I felt that compulsion. There were times when my parents were alive, and I felt the compulsion, kind of like to please them, even if I was living 3,000 miles away. But I'd never known anything different yet. And then after after my father died, I was just checking to see if my mother had died yet, and it was between the two. But I was on the West Coast, far away from where my parents were, where my mother was, and uh, going home to see mom for Christmas was not really an option at that moment. And I spent Christmas with some friends, and it was the weirdest Christmas for me because there was no stress. I was like, I don't get it. I was a guest, so I wasn't in charge of cooking, which is weird right there. And I wasn't trying to get everything, on the table and cooked at the right time, which was really nice. And everybody was like in sweatpants and blue jeans, and nobody was in a hurry to wake up. Everybody was a grown up. Everybody was an adult. So there was none of the, like lingering childhood stuff. And all of these people had different childhoods than I had. And so there was a very different energy about Christmas, and particularly Christmas Day. I personally had a tradition of going to midnight mass. My family didn't, but I did. And this group, some of them chose to go to midnight mass. They walked down the street to the church, and others decided not to go. It's like, wait a minute, there's all this choice, there's all this free will. What I don't understand. And then when it came to the meal, again, there was no hypertension, there was no anxiety, there was no gotta, have to. And food was cooked and food was shared, and everybody sat around in their blue jeans and their sweatpants. And the conversation wasn't that much different on Christmas Day than it had been on Christmas Eve or any other day. Um, and so there was just a lot of differences about that Christmas. Not all of them were comfortable, and some of them were kind of disappointing, right? And by that I mean, um, I was not disappointed at not having to be so stressed. That part was not a disappointment, but there was also like no specialness, and it got me to wondering, what makes the holiday special. And this particular group had all been raised um, some variety of Roman Catholic, but none of them were practicing anymore. Maybe a couple were, but they didn't proselytize or advertise it. And everybody was comfortable with each other's level of um, religiosity. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever experienced. And I did not like the lack of stress, because I found out that year that that incredible tension was the hallmark of Christmas for me. Got to get everything done. My personal tradition for period of time was, I would go to midnight mass, and then I would go home and to my apartment, and I'd bake gingerbread and make a gingerbread house, and then I would take it to my parents' house, like at 7:30 the next morning, to go to 8 o'clock mass with them. And so I would have had very little sleep, and then we'd come back to the house for Christmas. And when we were younger, there'd been like sweets and cinnamon rolls. And as we were older now, I was driving and was not living at home, and so I kind of instituted, we have to have some protein. So I instituted making like scrambled eggs, because we were going to sit down and open gifts, and that could take a long time, because in a way we did it was one gift at a time. Everybody watched while you opened a present and oohed and awed, and really appreciated, and it was, I suppose it was a kind of a gratitude thing, but really it was about appreciation and a shared experience. And it was lovely. It was wonderful. But I couldn't be doing that with no protein. So I think my father grumbled about that. So anyway, then there's the other, how this all fits in together with, what if something completely else is possible? This is, 2020, the year of the COVID, the year of many things being revealed to be broken or being broken. and apparently no one's able to stop them from breaking. And how we operate is changing. And there's kind of a some parts of the media anyway are really interested in getting back to normal. I know very few humans and very few people that I talk to who are interested in getting back to normal, because normal was not very conducive. It was not very generative. It was not very fun. Um, for all of the horrible, horrible things about 2020 and the COVID, of which there are many and counting, there also have been really amazing, fantastic things that have only been possible because of COVID. Um, one does not negate the other. They're all happening simultaneously. And and it's going on for so long, people are having an opportunity to really consider, well, what would you like to take about this time going forward? I know people who talk to me about wanting to have this kind of time with their kids. Um, Maybe not quite as much, but there has been a lot of connection that's happened. Um, the one that gets the most airplay is the disconnection and the isolation and missing each other, all of which is true. But also at the same time, people who are not technical have taken to Zoom and have really and have learned how to do it and appreciate it. And there's been more connecting with among friends with Zoom. Zoom, having like a dinner party where everybody's on Zoom and everybody's in their own houses, but together. So there's just lots of ways that we are reinventing our lives. And one of the greatest things about that to me is that until this year and until the COVID, there has been such a strong belief or hypnosis that things are how they are, and that's how they are, and that's how they're going to be. And the implication is that not only can things not get better, they can only get worse, right? We can only get more technologically bound. We can only get more surveillanced. We can only get more used to kind of a military mind managing our everyday lives. You have to have passwords. I remember in 2000 and 2001, I remember back in the old days, I worked at the IRS, oddly enough, and there were two different systems that you had to work in. And in each system, you had to put in a, a password every time you changed a screen, as though that was going to make it more secure. It doesn't. What it does is it instills in the user a sense of vast and extraordinary, unmanageable, not secureness. You're not secure. So here we are in our civilian lives, um, being trained with television and programs and how the software we use, how not secure we are. It reminds me a lot of having to take off our shoes to get through the line to go onto an airport, into an airplane, um, and yet anything in the daily news can happen every day. So, causing us inconvenience um, can be a demonstration of how secure-minded an agency or a corporation is, but it doesn't make us more secure. It just makes, and in fact, it instills in our bodies a sense of not secure. So there's a lot of things that are happening right now, and a lot of them are um, challenging. There's a lot of blocks to normalcy. We can't see each other the way we would love to. We can't have dinner together. There's just a lot of things we um, reasonably can't do. And there's a lot of ways that we're discovering what else is possible. We can have dinner together over Zoom. We can, another great thing that's happened about all of this is that people are walking more and spending more time in nature. And spending more time in nature helps everything. It's the best antidote to the crazies of um modern life. And the more you can spend time with trees and the plants and the birds and the bees and the animals, um, and people have told me, they're connecting to the earth in ways that they thought they had a pretty good connection with the earth and with nature, and now in the COVID time, they're discovering whole new ways of being fed and nurtured by nature and appreciating being together with nature. So, um, what else is possible? And like I was saying a minute ago, one of the great things about so many things falling apart is people discovering that more is possible. Turns out more is possible. Different stuff is possible. And a year ago, a lot of people, we just had the programming that says this is how it is and that's how it is, and so just you better adjust, right? You better accept. And now it's like, well, maybe, maybe not, right? Maybe that's how things always were, but maybe that's not how they're going to be in the future. And maybe that's not how I choose to have things to be. I mean, that's the other thing, when people have gotten used to having more freedom of choice of time and space and how they spend their time and space, they're going to be less interested in um, losing the choice, right? I mean, people may choose to go back to offices, um, and they may not, right? There's just lots more possibilities now. Um, and so much has happened. I mean, it's not only the COVID, it's also the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. And there's just so many oppressed and suppressed roles and groups that are not willing to be oppressed and suppressed anymore. Uh, so it's like it's time. It's time for new possibilities and other possibilities. And when you're using this tool, what else is possible now is a great tool. And the way we use questions is not to generate answers, because all answers are like terminations. There's no flow. After you have the answer, there's no flow. And with a question like, what else is possible? You're going to run through the list of predictable answers. Um, and then there's like blankness, uh, and there's a space. And in that space, your brain's already tossed out the answers that it knows, and then it's stumped because none of those are doing it. And then there's this space, this opening of what else is possible. And when you're in that opening state, that space of real curiosity, actual curiosity, then other possibilities can appear. It's like it's not that they come out of nowhere. It's that kind of like the scales of your eyes fall, the programming falls away. And so you're asking, what else is possible? And you ask it enough times, and those scales fall away from your eyes, and you can see the infinite possibilities that are always around, but all the answers get in the way of us seeing and perceiving the possibilities, right? So all conclusions, decisions, assumptions, instructions, their definitions, they're all like walls. They all stop the energy from flowing. And the more you can be in the question of what else is possible, and you're starting to include stuff that you've never even thought of. And, just because you haven't thought of it doesn't mean it's not there, right? You can't see beyond the horizon, but that doesn't mean whatever is beyond the horizon doesn't exist, right? So, here I am in Virginia, and I can't see past the horizon that I can see, but I know Nebraska and Tennessee and Texas and California are over there. They're just beyond the horizon. So when you're asking what else is possible, you're starting to include beyond what you can see, beyond what's in front of you, and beyond what you've been told is possible. Because one of the greatest things about all of this year, 2020, is that we really are experiencing that there are more possibilities than we have been told. And we're all just kind of breaking out of the mass hypnosis. And what else is possible starts to invite and include that stuff that's beyond the beyonds, beyond the horizon. So as you're enjoying this Christmas 2020, and or not enjoying it, as the case may be, you're finding the things that don't work or you don't like, or missing people, or whatever it is for you. Also be curious about um, what else is possible, and be open to having what else is possible kind of well up inside of you as a knowingness, or appear to you as like an awareness, like, oh, I never thought of that before. We could do that. That would be cool, right? So do take good care of yourself and everybody around you. I mean, be conscientious and considerate, as I know you are, and be curious about what else is possible, and see what you can enjoy as normal migrates into whatever we decide to create next. All right. So happy weekend before Christmas, and take good care. See ya.